What? Hey! Hi, it's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 14, Episode 3. And before I get started, I just want to send a shout out to the one and only Nomi Moore. She has a fantastic YouTube channel where she does makeup tutorials. She also has done some cooking demonstrations with her husband, her little dog too, and she often does a giveaway, and I recently won one of her giveaways. It was a fabulous package that included 2 sponges and a powder brush from Real Techniques and 2 lip liners from Runway Rogue. I'm showing you me using them right now. They are spectacular. The sponges I use dry. You can use them dry or wet. One is for makeup liquid, and one is for makeup powder, so blushes, contour, translucent. And the 2 lipstick liners, I have to tell you, I have never had a better lip liner, and I'm not saying that because I won these. My favorite is MAC. I like MAC. The formula's good. It goes on smooth. It's not dry or scratchy. These are just as good, if not better. And I've got links to both of these products down below, as well as Nomi's YouTube channel. So please check those out. While I'm at it, for those of you who want to know, I created today's look with the P. Louise Watch the Queen Conquer palette. I used actually, this is a double-sided palette. We've got purples and pinks, and we've got greens and oranges, and I used from both sides of this palette. And I just have to say, this is one of my Black Friday purchases. I love it. I am just going to say, I've got a link to their website down below as well. Of course, I can't do anything before I thank this week's tipper-doos. Manfred from Tokyo thanked me because he says my videos make his mornings a little bit better. My pleasure, Manfred. And Brandon Cantrell said that he and his boyfriend Kevin wanted to send me a little something, but well, the vid put a kibosh on that, so they tipper-dooed me instead, and I am forever grateful. Thank you, Brandon. Give Kevin my love. And of course, this week wouldn't be complete without a tipper-doo from my YouTube boyfriend Vito. I love you, Vito. Seriously, if you'd like to be a tipper-doo and help keep this channel going, well, the link for that is down below in the description box. I also want to welcome Stephen Johnson and Kimberly Berg to the Fingerdoo family on Patreon. Hopefully, we'll see both of you at the next live chat. We do 2 live chats a month here at the Fingerdoo camp on Patreon. So if you'd like to become a Patreoner and get in on the conversation, the link to that is down below as well. Now, Jorge, drink me. Oh, what is this? Oh, it's a gin. It's just a blueberry gin fizz. Oh, okay. What is it? Oh, Steinhardt's Blueberry Gin, which we love, and Fresca. All right. Oh my God, Jorge. That is delish. Why Fresca? Oh, because we have so much of it. All right. So, we started this episode off with the round 2 queens a little battle weary, especially Deja, who was taking solace in being called a lip sync assassin. As they said goodbye to Daya, the fairest in the land, Alicia Keys, popped up in the mirror once again to direct the queen's attention to the workroom doors, where the Group 1 queens made their entrance again. Even though they struck an us versus them pose, the queens quickly started welcoming each other. Jasmine was excited to see her friend Carrie Colby, and Deja and Cornbread obviously were already friends. Well, at least Cornbread has hired Deja to make her some looks in the past, at any rate. Friendly? Georges was more than familiar with Alyssa Hunter's pageant career and seemed a little worried. Angeria didn't know Cornbread, but was digging her personality, even though she had on a Mary J. Blige pussycat wig. I guess she didn't like that. And Willow Pill was sad to see that she wasn't the littlest one anymore, what with Georges bopping around. But Willow didn't care. She said she still had the youngest looking face. Well, no offense, but Willow still hasn't seen Georges out of drag. The next day in the workroom, the remaining 12 queens were still sousing each other out. Bosco was feeling the pressure, but in the best way possible, if you ask me. She felt her first week was good enough to be top 6. This week, though, she was going to have to try harder to at least make top 3, seriously. And then, without a video warning, Ru showed up with a surprise. Orion's Story and Daya Betty. Ru was bringing them back into the competition. Daya seemed thrilled to be there, while Orion was ready to throw down against June in the parking lot. And June looked scared. I have to admit that I'm glad that Ru brought them back, because even though they didn't do well, they weren't the worst, and as far as Daya was concerned, I wanted to see how she would do against some of the other queens. What? Orion? No, she was one of the other queens I was talking about. But Ru promised there would be no more saves. Well, at least from her. She was leaving that in the hands of the gods, or more specifically, the wrapper of a candy bar. The pit crew rolled out a trolley with 14 Ru bars on it, one for each of the queens, but only one would have a golden bar in it, which, if revealed when a queen was facing elimination, would save her from sashaying away. See? I knew chocolate could be good for you. Some of the queens were happy about it, while others seemed a tad miffed. Cheerio. One by one, the queens chose their chocolate and signed those bars. Well, except for Maddie, who seemed to be flummoxed by the drama of it all. Cue the queens ribbing the straight boy. That didn't sound right. Then it was Maxi challenge time. Ru was throwing a ball. Well, 2 in fact. The week 1 queens would be serving 3 looks for the hide and chic ball. Look 1, zebra print resort. Look 2, leopard evening gown down. And for the 3rd look, the queens would have to create their own wedding gown eleganza using all the colors of the animal print rainbow fabric that were being provided. And not all those animal print colors were found in nature, I'm so serious. Well, not without chemical assistance, I'm just saying. The week 2 queens would be serving 3 looks for the red, white, and blue ball. Look 1, red hot resort. Look 2, evening gown down, all in white. And for their 3rd look, the queens would be using red, white, and blue fabric for their wedding gown eleganza. I think Ru's playing fast and loose with the word eleganza if she wants to see red, white, and blue wedding dresses. Seriously. I mean, unless you're married on the 4th of July, I'm just saying. Well, Deja, for one, was really looking forward to this challenge, and why wouldn't she? She sews. Right away, the queens made a run to start grabbing at fabric. Some of the queens were being ladies about it, while others weren't. Miss Hunter. As the queens got ready, the week 1 queens had some questions for Maddie Morphosis because, well, they'd missed Ru's official outing of the straight boy. No one seemed to have a problem with her, and for the most part, me included, they were pleased to hear that not only did Maddie have an extremely supportive girlfriend, but that she met her when she was in drag. Here's to Maddie's girlfriend, seriously. Other queens seemed to just get down to work. Jasmine was excited for this challenge because, well, she makes herself a new outfit every week. But when she asked Daya what she thought about her design, Daya said it was very her. Didn't mean she liked it. June was in trouble, mostly because she doesn't sew. She was lost in the weeds right out of the gate. Come on, drag queens, learn to sew before you apply for Drag Race. Seriously. In fact, I think making a dress from scratch should be one of the prerequisites for making it onto Drag Race. It doesn't have to be a complicated dress. It's not La Couturier's Drag Race. We've got Project Runway for that, but even as a self-professed stylist, June should have some basic sewing skills. Seriously. Pretty girl Carrie was another queen who was being kiboshed by the Kenmore. Or was it a singer sewing machine? Either way, she wasn't doing any singing about her sewing abilities either. Thank God Jasmine was in awe of Carrie's drag mother, Sasha Colby, because she helped drape a look on Carrie with safety pins, which, well, they could cover in stones to hide them if need be. See, that's how you make a dress on Drag Race. Work with what you know. Well, that got Angie's attention. She was all about sharing some stones, which must have tickled Carrie because she made a Sharon Stone joke that went right over Angie's head. How old am I that I'm being shocked that Sharon Stone is known as some white lady by today's generation? Seriously, I'm only 55. And if you make one smart remark, I will give you such a pinch. Seriously, I must have been the only one who was impressed that Carrie even knew who Sharon Stone was, because All the rest of the queens did was giggle as she was feeling her oats getting pinned into that fabric. Maybe that's why she doesn't sew. Carrie's too busy modeling, bless. Then things got surreal. Maddie found a dead dragonfly on the floor, and I have to admit, as a straight boy, I was surprised she was afraid to touch it. The only one brave enough to pick it up was Daya. That's when Cornbread said she'd give Daya $1,000 to eat it. How did we get from finding a dead bug to eating it, I would like to know. Which is what Daya did. I mean, how bad can craft service be? She may have to check her blood sugar after that because, well, it was a big bug, seriously. As for the other things Daya says she eats, I don't think it's fair to do a generalized column A versus column B comparison. There are too many variables, like size, level of crunch, how much goo gushes out, and I haven't even gotten to the bugs yet. Just see what pull your pants up. Willow, who was obviously too focused on her creation to care what Daya was putting in her mouth, admitted that she makes 50% of her own wardrobe. Okay, well, a third. All right, a quarter. But still, however much she makes, it was clear that she knew her way around a sewing machine, even with complications due to her illness. Thank God Cornbread was there to lend her a helping hand and a hot cup of water to ease the stiffness in her fingers. Here's to Cornbread for making an effort with the other queens. Getting to know you. Okay, well, not all the other queens, because she clearly couldn't be bothered to learn Diabetti's name. She thought it was Diabetica, and bless Diabetti for not correcting her. There was a lot of love in that room. I mean, even when some of the queens made fun of Maddie's wedding dress behind her back, they really loved doing it. And then it was Elimination Day. Right off the top, June Jambalaya started her day off by giving Orion's story one of the most convoluted backhanded compliments I've ever heard. First, she admitted to Orion that she wasn't happy to have her back in the competition because it diminished her triumph of winning their lip sync. Then she said because Orion didn't get to show more of what she could do, it was very deserving that she was back and that she loved her and couldn't wait to send her home again. Orion didn't seem bothered. She knew her start was rocky, but she wasn't about to waste this second chance to prove herself. Good for Orion. As Angie and Willow got to know each other, LC couldn't stop fixating on Angie's accent to the point that she started mimicking her. Angie loved that. Still, Angie wasn't totally hating on LC. The more she talked at her, the more LC laughed herself silly, which made me think that Angie was going to shove something in her mouth to shut her up. You heard me. As the other queens kibitz, we learned that Orion Story's mom had committed suicide and that Orion's doing drag was a way of connecting with her mom because they used to watch Drag Race together. In fact, Orion didn't even start doing drag until after her mother passed, and her runway look was an ode to her. This really touched my heart because my mom suffered from depression, enough so that she tried to take her own life a couple of times. Thankfully, she never succeeded and ended up passing due to natural causes. But still, it's hard to realize your parents are just people like everyone else. So here's to Orion and her mom, seriously. Then Carrie shared her struggles about not being welcome in her family's home due to their inability to accept her and her feelings of her own sexual identity. Cornbread got so emotional listening to this that she had to leave the room. Her story was that she felt like a disappointment to her family because of her mother's judgment and used to pray that she wouldn't wake up in the morning, which, I'm sorry, was just so horrible to hear, especially after she had the strength to leave, only to find out that her family wasn't looking for her, which was too much for me. Thank God for tissues is all I'm saying. I must admit, I was really happy to hear that Cornbread has a better relationship with her family today. But clearly, there are still some issues there. I said issues, not tissues. No, wait, give me those. And then it was time for the runway. I did not love Rue's Golden Amoeba Fantasy, but I also didn't hate it. Maybe if it had had a longer skirt to it, it would have been more balanced, but as it was, it looked kind of crafty to me. Michelle was looking lovely in an embroidered boat neck top with a curly updo, and yes, curly updo was my drag queen name in high school. Carson Kressley was looking nifty in navy, and joining the judges this week was Bling Empire's Christine Shu, looking fabulous in feathers. Now, before we get into this, there are 42 looks to judge, so I'm going to be as quick as possible, and I'm going to do each group all at once. So first up, the hide and chic ball category is Zebra Print Resort. Alyssa Hunter was first, rocking shorts and a cutaway coat. Her look was inspired by the movie Racing Stripes, and I gave it a Fingerdoo. Bosco's après-ski wear on Mars unitard with, were they horns? She's all about the pointy things sticking out from her head, isn't she? Who said horny? Well, no matter what she is, I gave this look a Fingerdoo as well. I don't know why, but I just loved Willow's pastel zebra ode to an 80s business lady. Talk about understated power. Fingerdoo for Willow. By the way, I want that wig. Call her, let her know. I don't know if I would have loved Carrie Colby's runway more or less if she hadn't had on those pink tights and shoes, but I still would have given this look a Fingerdoo, seriously. I didn't hate Cornbread's monochromatic look, but I definitely would have loved it more if there had been some air in that hair. Seriously, that wig was a tad flat, but I still gave her a Fingerdoo. I'm just going to go ahead and say that I wasn't a fan of Orion's zebra look. Personally, I wish there'd been more zebra to it. A short pleated skirt and opera gloves aren't enough for me. I would have at least painted or covered the shoes in a zebra print. And that little bow in her hair while we're at it. Fingerdoo for Orion. Finally, June was rocking some fashion. Now, that was a zebra-themed runway. That summery two-piece was absolutely elevated to boss lady chic with that long coat and circular purse. I'm so happy to say Fingerdoo for June. It's about time. Round two's category, Leopard evening wear. I just about died when I saw Alyssa Hunter's Terry Mugler-inspired fantasy. This was stunning, and I'm not just talking about that hat. Fingerdoo for Alyssa. I like Bosco's runway, but she seemed to be stuck in that resort wear category. This just didn't say evening wear to me. I blame the palazzo pants for that. Mind you, I blame palazzo pants for most things. Fingerdoo for Bosco. Willow's black on black leopard was made even more gorgeous with all that gold accenting. Seriously, that's two fabulous looks in a row from Miss Willow. Fingerdoo. Seriously. Carrie Colby's lavender leopard was gorgeous, but it wasn't evening wear. I don't care what time of the day she was wearing it. Based on that, I have to give her a Fingerdoo. Not that I wanted to. Cornbread's runway was okay, if not a little too matronly. Personally, I wish there'd been more leopard to it. Still, I gave her a Fingerdoo. I hate to say it, but I hated Orion's second look too. There was too much going on, especially after she released that titty. Plus, that skull on her head was getting complaints. From me. Fingerdoo for Orion. Again. I will say this. Orion's padding is perfection. Too bad she covered it with that is all I'm saying. Seriously. I like June's evening wear until she tried to walk in it. Seriously, she brought this outfit ready-made. At no point did she think the hem needed shortening. It's too bad because her face and hair were stunning, but I have to give this look a Fingerdoo. Seriously, she could have at least pinned that hem up a little for the runway, I'm just saying. Final category, animal print bridal couture. These were the looks the queens made in the workroom. Alyssa Hunter was first, and, well, I can see why she gets her outfits made for her. It's not the worst thing I've seen go down the runway on RuPaul's Drag Race, but I wonder how well she would have done if Alyssa didn't have that almost nude onesie to stick everything to. Still, I'll give her a Fingerdoo for trying, bless. I loved Bosco's look because it said 1950s wedding in Vegas with, well, a little Betty Page realness thrown in for good measure. I would have liked it more if the detachable skirt had matched her gloves, but it didn't bother me enough not to give her a Fingerdoo. I was surprised by how much I liked Willow's runway. The pants, the monochromatic palette, a bit of lace across the eyes as a nod to a veil. It was lovely and elegant all at the same time. Not bad for someone who only makes about a quarter of their outfits. Fingerdoo for Willow. I'm just going to say this. The best thing about all of Carrie Colby's runways this week was her. She is just stunning. I'm not sure how bridal this gown was, but I didn't hate it, so Fingerdoo for Carrie. Gorgeous. Cornbread's runway said more bridesmaid than bride, but I didn't hate it. I also didn't hate that wig, so Fingerdoo for the snack. Seriously. The minute RuPaul said young Morgan Fairchild, that's all I saw where Orion was concerned. She looked gorgeous, and I have to say, this was my favorite of all her runways. Yes, the dress was a little busy, and no, it didn't scream bridal wear, but I could totally see her getting married in it, so Fingerdoo for Miss Story. Seriously. The best thing about June's runway was that non-traditional bouquet she was carrying, but it hid the majority of her dress, which made me think she was hiding something, and from what I could see, it seemed to be hiding a lot. So I had to give this look a finger don't. And then we had the week 2 queens, red, white, and blue ball. Their first category, red hot resort. Diabetes was first in a red and white polka dot baby doll and red tights, but the star of her show was that pigtailed wig. Although I didn't see a lot of resort in this runway, I still gave her a Fingerdoo. Angie was next in a marabou-edged baby doll of her own. Maybe it was because this was sleeveless, but I felt that this looked more resorty to me. Red is definitely Angie's color. Fingerdoo. I didn't hate Deja Sky's runway. What I hated was how light her nude fabric was. It was more matched to the center of her face than to her actual skin tone. Still, I gave her a Fingerdoo. Jasmine look was the most resorty of the bunch, even if it looked, well, a little cheap. I love this she went camp with the lobster claws, even though I didn't understand why. Still, Fingerdoo for Jasmine. I don't know if Georges's runway said resort or the club, but I definitely said yes, ma'am, to the retro disco-ness of it all. So, of course, I gave her a Fingerdoo. I love the gold detail in LC's resort look. The asymmetric cover-up and headscarf were beautiful, so Fingerdoo for LC. I didn't hate Maddie Morphous's palazzo jumper, and yes, that was also my drag queen name in high school. What I hated was her runway walk. She seemed bored or like she'd just woken up. Maybe that's why she was wearing those sunglasses. So I gave her my dreaded half Fingerdoo, the pinky do. Wake up, Maddie! Seriously. Category 2, evening wear. Why gotta be white? I love Diabetes' hair and makeup more than her runway, which I didn't actually hate. It just said choir wear more than evening wear to me. Still, I gave her a Fingerdoo. You heard me. Angie's white coat over that white lace jumpsuit didn't say evening wear to me either, but it was so damn beautiful that I had to give it a Fingerdoo. Seriously. I love Deja's runway. The capelet and the pants were lovely, but if she's not going to pad her chest, she needs to fit that bodice better, if you ask me. Not that anyone did. So Fingerdoo for Miss Sky. When Jasmine Kennedy stepped onto the runway, I was thinking Juliette Prowse just as Ruth said it. And if you don't know who Juliette Prowse is, we can't be friends. Seriously, watch her episode of The Muppet Show on Disney+. Educate yourself. As beautiful as Jasmine looked, I had a few issues with this runway. The look was more showgirl, and that feather and fabric combo wasn't as white as I felt it could be. I still gave her a Fingerdoo. Speaking of as white as it could be, Georges's runway took my breath away. Although it had a lot going on, none of its elements fought for attention, so of course I gave this a Fingerdoo. I'm not sure what all LC had going on in her runway look, but she could have Coco Chanel'd a few of those features if you ask me. I didn't hate that wire work that wrapped around her head, but that bit sticking out from her hip was troubling and fought with that unnecessarily large bow. Sorry, but finger don't for the lady. Maddie was next, and all I can say is this queen loves her costumes, sweet Marie and the ships at sea. This look would have been better on the 1927 set of Metropolis than as evening wear. I also thought this would have stuck more to the category if her stars and moons were silver instead of gold. All in all, it was a finger don't for Miss Morphosis. Final category is red, white, and blue, Bridal Couture. Diabetes' runway was okay, but I feel like she could have Coco Chanel'd a few features off of this look too. Like, Well, the gloves and the flowers she stuck on it. Still, I gave her a Fingerdoo. Angie's runway was gorgeous. If a bride ever wanted to wear a red gown, this would be it. Fingerdoo for Miss Van Michaels. Seriously. I love Deja's runway. This was elegant with just the right amount of embellishment. Now, that's how you fit fabric around a juicy finger. Kendall Gender, I'm talking to you. Seriously. Fingerdoo for Miss Sky. There was a lot of information going on with Jasmine's runway, but for this look, I wasn't mad at it. I could totally see someone getting married in this. Not in a church, mind you, but still. Fingerdoo for Ms. Kennedy. Although this was my least favorite of Georges's runways, I didn't hate it. Yes, she looked like she was going to marry Evel Knievel, but at least she looked like she was getting married. Fingerdoo for Georges. The best thing about Elsie's runway was that she painted that blue and white star detail on that red velvet. The worst thing about her runway was that wired wrap of stars she added. Still, I gave her a Fingerdoo. I didn't hate Maddie's runway. I certainly think it looked better with the tight skirt than it did with the full one she was working with in the workroom. I also loved how animated she was in this look. I wish she'd done the same with her other runways. Seriously, Fingerdoo for Maddie. Finally, it was time for the judges' critiques. First off, Alyssa Hunter, Bosco, Carrie Colby, Cornbread, Diabetti, Deja Sky, Jasmine Kennedy, and Lady Camden were told they were safe, so they frigged off to the Untucked Lounge. As for the rest, Willow Pill was first to be judged. For the most part, all the judges liked her whole collection, but Michelle said what I was thinking, that her final look was the showstopper. Rue was so impressed that she asked Willow where she got her sense of style. Willow said she'd had such bad style for so long that she just finally developed a good one. Here's to Willow. This is an answer right there. Ryan's story was next, and right off the hop, Rue gushed over how beautiful she was. And when she asked Orion if she saw that, Orion said, yeah, which was just so fabulous. As for her runway looks themselves, the judges weren't too impressed. Michelle thought her bridal look was the best, but Rue agreed that all of her looks were too busy. Speaking of Rue, this is where her alleged coffee enema kicked in. Whatever it was, it certainly made the rest of the judging a touch more vivid, if you ask me. June was next. Christine was right when she said that look was private jet, not coach travel, although Michelle thought the wig was a little shake and go. Carson called June out for tripping on her evening wear hem, and Rue agreed that June seemed to be hiding her bridal look behind her oversized bouquet. When Rue asked June what happened, June admitted that sewing was a challenge for her. Rue had some great advice. Look for pictures of celebrities with similar figures and copy what they're wearing. That's when Rue's enema kicked her in the colon and she started on her "you ain't got to reinvent the wheel" rant. It was hard to watch. As far as Angie's runways were concerned, none of the judges had anything bad to say. Carson even went so far as to say that her evening wear was one of the best runway looks on Drag Race ever. I disagree. Georges was another favorite of the judges, and even though her bridal look wasn't their favorite, Rue told her that she was born to do drag. Well, you could just see from Georges's expression that that was almost as good as winning the crown. Almost. Maddie was next. For the most part, the judges were unimpressed with her runway. Rue said she was missing that certain pussy on fire. Well, that's when Rue's enema hit her lower intestines, I'm guessing, because, well, she started moaning and grunting like she was passing a stone. Don't get me wrong, I thought it was hysterical, but I forget what she was talking about. And while Rue went off on her "you don't gotta reinvent the wheel" rant one more time, the queens retired to the Untucked Lounge. The safe queens were luxuriating in the knowledge that they were safe, especially Daya, who had been eliminated just last week. Jasmine was bitter that she was safe. Clearly, she thought her sewing skills were better than that. I love Daya's advice, which was build a bridge and get over it, because clearly there was some much better sewing going on in that workroom. Just saying. Alyssa was upset at being safe too. Oh, come on. Is anyone else surprised that she thought she should have won? Bosco certainly didn't. Alyssa was also disappointed that she was in the bottom last week because she's a runway coach back home. Well, I guess if you can't do, you teach. Clearly, this competition is way different than what goes on at a pageant. Just saying. Carrie was just upset that she wasn't getting any feedback from the judges. Daya didn't understand why these queens weren't happy about being safe, especially after she went home the first week. Carrie, for one, felt that Daya should be in the competition because her drag aesthetic is so well done. I agree. Cornbread and Bosco didn't necessarily share that opinion. They were bummed not only by the fact that there were 6 new queens added to the mix after their week, but that they brought 2 of them back. I get that, but I would have looked at that first week as a rehearsal for the rest of the competition, and I have started trying harder. Just me? Sparks started to fly between Jasmine and Cornbread over acknowledging who got help with what, which is when Alyssa interrupted to say that, right off the hop, she knew Cornbread was going to be competition and would definitely be making top 4. As the queens were discussing who was going to be in the top and who was going to be in the bottom, they all seemed to jump down Alyssa's throat for being a shady pageant queen. Even though the queens all have different experiences with pageant queens, all poor Alyssa was hearing was that, well, she was a bad person. No matter how much the queens tried to say that wasn't the point, the damage was already done where Alyssa was concerned, bless. Thank God the rest of the queens arrived. Right away, it was clear that Willow was going to be in the top. As for who the bottom 2 queens would be, they all agreed that it was probably going to be Orion and June. No one was surprised, and, well, that clearly made June emotional. And then the queens were given their 10-minute call back to the runway. Everyone's emotions started to get the better of them, especially June when she saw Maddie working it in front of the mirror. Back on the main stage, it was announced that this week's winner was Willow Pill. Here's to Willow. Well done, seriously. Not surprisingly, it was June Jambalaya and Maddie Morphosis who would be lip-syncing for their lives to I Love It by Kylie Minogue. I'm not sure if June was too much in her head or what, but right out of the gate, Maddie seemed to be having way more fun lip-syncing. I was amazed at how good June's dress looked after she took off all those other layers, even if the top of it had difficulty staying up. June also had a wig change for what it was worth, but when she kicked off her shoes, Cornbread and I knew it was over, even with that split. Maddie, on the other hand, kept it simple. Her lip sync was tight, she didn't oversell it on the runway, and even kept herself from tripping over June's discards. So when it was all said and done, I wasn't surprised that it was Maddie who shantaed and it was June who was going to sashay away. Well, that was until Rue reminded us about the chocolate bar wild card save. Did June have the golden bar? No, sadly. It was official that June was going to be the pork chop of the season, and I, for one, would be lying if I didn't say how sorry I was for her. So, what do you think? Did the right queen go home? Were the right queens in the bottom? What do we think about Orion and Daya coming back? Let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and to subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And while you're down there, don't forget to check out my links in the description box for becoming a Patreoner, a Tipperdoo, or visiting my Redbubble store. And until next week, miss me! Seriously, this was a lot this week. I can't believe how emotional it got in that workroom. But I have to say, this is one of the first seasons of Drag Race where I am liking everybody. Even Alyssa Hunter, who's coming off a bit pillish, you can see it's just the stress. She's in pageant mode, and I think there's just a different headspace for queens who compete on that professional level. I just think she's just setting herself up to come off cold and distant, but I think she's just hyper-focused, bless her. I'm so glad Willow won. I don't think anyone really expects anything from her, but that was a good week to win the ball. Oh, they're so hard. And poor June. Gee whiz, I said this her first week. She just seems so focused that she's forgetting to have fun. And that's what I had a problem with her runways this week. She just didn't have any joy in them. It was disheartening. Can you imagine if it had been June and Orion sent June home? Well, there would have been a comeuppance. You heard me. I know it sounds dirty.